All right, everyone, welcome back to the block party. It is block party number 64, our 64th collective intelligence block party. We'll have to have my uncle, Dr. Frank Shively, do the math. 24 hours times 64 block parties. That's probably a pretty big number. That's how many hours we've done block party. We started Valentine's Day, 2020, February 14th, 2020 was block party number 1. And that was actually pre-COVID. But anyway, I digress, but only a little bit, because COVID has, as many people have independently assessed, COVID, in a sense, put us in a chrysalis state, right? Where the imaginal cells, since we were all basically grounded at home for many months, over a year, most of us, I still feel largely grounded, right? And most of us still are in many ways. And so many people have independently come to characterize this state that we're in as a chrysalis, right? Where we've kind of gone inward. The caterpillar has curled up, slowed down, in many ways shut down, and in many other ways broken down. The caterpillar was breaking down even before COVID, long before COVID. And so the big picture story of the chrysalis, it's story time, boys and girls. So everyone, wrap yourselves in a warm blanket, pour some hot chocolate. Michael, maybe take a toke. Christopher, another shot of Canadian whiskey. It's story time. Okay, so and this is actually very important, because as a species, we're a species that runs on stories. That's how we make sense of the world. That's how we make sense of each other. That's how we tell our own story. So the story of the chrysalis comes in 3 volumes, 3 books. Book 1, Book 2, Book 3. And Book 1 of the chrysalis is called, oh, thank you. There's some nice, talk about nice BC bud, right? I'm not sure Uncle Frank's old enough to look at that, but anyway, we'll give you a kitchen pass there, Michael, since you're Michael. Anyway, Uncle Frank, pretend you didn't see that. Anyway, so Book 1 is called The Caterpillar. It's the book of the caterpillar, right? The caterpillar's journey. Book 2 is the chrysalis. And Book 3 is, you guessed it, the butterfly, right? So we are in early stages of Book 2 right now, the chrysalis. And the caterpillar is, for me, the caterpillar is the story of humanity and Mother Earth for the past approximately 12,000 years, ever since the agricultural revolution. From my perspective, prior to the agricultural revolution, when we were basically running naked through the jungle and just, coexisting with nature and with all of our sister and brother species, that was basically, we were in balance. Humanity was in balance with the rest of Mother Earth. But then the agricultural revolution comes along, and we essentially became this caterpillar with this voracious appetite, chopping down, slashing, burning, doing totalitarian agriculture, right? Decimating whole forests, whole ecosystems to plant monoculture, right? And then worse, enslaving animals, right? For animal agriculture, and then which necessitated us growing even more monoculture to feed all those animals. And then, of course, all that monoculture allowed us to just increase our population exponentially. And here we are, 8 billion or so, just some ridiculous number. When we used to be 1/1000th that population. We used to be 8 million, tens of thousands of years ago. Well, we hovered around, 8 million, 10 million, 12 million, but come the agricultural revolution, and we just took off, and now here we are, just totally dominating the planet. So the story of the book one, the book of the caterpillar, ends in basically the caterpillar consuming almost everything, right? Most of the megafauna, the wild animals, are either extinct or their numbers drastically reduced. Some of them are living only in zoos in captivity. So at the end of book one, it's a very sad ending to book one in many measures, because it's ended in extinction for so many species. And the beginning
I saw
of
the red fox, for example, has 249, and most of those are in captive environments. Red fox.
wow, yeah, it's a real just tragedies compounding tragedies, and most of humanity is basically addicted to this hoarding modality that we were born into, right? We were born into a world where we were taught that the best we could aspire to was to become millionaires and billionaires and own land and cars and boats and helicopters and airplanes and animals, and own and have dominion, like that was a good thing, right? And most of us are addicted, and in various ways, in different degrees, addicted to hoarding. And it's not limited to just the material and the financial, which is the financial is a tokenization of the material. But it's not just limited to the material, it's also ego, hoarding credit, taking credit for whatever, right? And intellectual property and all that. So it's gone in all these perverse directions, human slavery, human trafficking, owning animals. Give me a break. Owning land. Give me a break. It's ridiculous. And yet we've just gone way off on the deep end in this regard. So the end of book one is really a tragic ending of a pretty horrific story of the caterpillar. Now, yes, a lot of learnings have come out of that. A lot of technology has come out of that. And, many people put some positive spins on that. I'm not so positive on book one, but it happened. It's part of our past. It's part of our reality. It's part of, how we're showing up here in 2021. So book two is the Chrysalis. And many folks were going inward and basically choosing alternate realities, alternate lifestyles, intentional communities, etc., towards the end of book one. So a lot of people got the jump on the Chrysalis, decades ago, centuries ago. But the Chrysalis really kicked into high gear with COVID, as we were all kind of forced inward. And that created an opportunity for the imaginal selves, all of us, to wake up within this chrysalis goo and start talking with each other and saying, hey, let's do this, right? And so within that, go ahead.
Mention, I think I've had that strain, the chrysalis goo. Very resonant. Thank you.
Nice. Wow. Okay. So, and then now it's in. Thank you, sweetheart. And within the chrysalis, as the imaginal cells started to wake up and connect with each other, the decaying caterpillar, the decaying body of the caterpillar, the defenses started attacking the imaginal cells. They see them as some foreign object, and in reality, they are foreign to the now obsolete caterpillar. But the caterpillar rebels against its own obsolescence and it rebels against these imaginal cells waking up, connecting, and basically saying, hey, let's rebuild, let's reconstruct this whole thing, right? And so, and in fact, I've had 2 significant character assassination attempts against me happen within this emerging chrysalis. And it's interesting. I've been attacked and threatened by organized crime going back several years because of imaginal cell activity I did in the realm of legalizing cannabis and taking cannabis out of the hands of organized crime. Well, organized crime fought back, and I've received multiple death threats and other forms of attacks. And then with COVID and, a bunch of us imaginal cells waking up and connecting, as we started connecting, I was the target of 2 character assassination attempts by a network which identifies itself and characterizes itself as a compassionate transformational network, right? So figure that one out. And the thing is, just because someone or some group or some network calls themselves compassionate or, all about bringing humanity together, or however they market themselves, as the old saying goes, actions speak louder than words. Their actions have been in the direction of hoarding credit, ego, hoarding money. And when they saw us doing what we're doing right here in this Zoom room, they attacked and started spreading lies, mainly about me, because they saw me as the leader. The reality is there's a whole bunch of leaders here. Everyone here is a leader. Welcome back, Julian. We are recording here. Looks like some good green stuff you got there on the table. Good to see you. We're recording. Say hello to my Uncle Frank in New Mexico. And I'm just giving a kind of an overview, a recap. And so within the chrysalis, right, it's not all love and harmony. There have been some serious attacks happening as the defenses of the old guard, the old decaying caterpillar, has been attacking the imaginal cells. And that's something we need to take very seriously, because as we grow in number, as we get better organized, and as we start to evolve into a collective super intelligence, the old decaying caterpillar is going to feel more and more threatened, and they're going to blame us for their decay, right, and decline, because we're all about co-creating something totally new. And we are all for shutting down the old omnicidal machinery of hoarding, right, and of violence, and of dominion, right, and of destruction of all kinds. And so it's something we need to take very seriously. So anyway, more on that later. But bottom line, I call it kind of this epic battle between the imaginal cells, all of us, and the Klingons, right? Those who are clinging on to the old story, the old paradigm, what I call the all-day monopoly game of infinite hoarding on a finite planet, right? Which is destroying all of life on Earth. And so thank goodness the machinery of the caterpillar is breaking down. The caterpillar is breaking down. And it is up to us, the imaginal cells, to organize ourselves and come together and co-create something new, a new reality, a new world. And to do that,
we're a new calendar, I might add. Thank you, Dr. Rao. New calendar.
A new calendar, absolutely. And so, in fact, I was showing some slides earlier today, which I'll share now, regarding one kind of metaphor for looking at how we imaginal cells are coming together, right? So think of us, think of this community right here in the conversation, the block party, the press conference. It's all one Zoom room. It's all one community, all of us. And welcome home, everyone. Think of us as one cluster. We're one cluster of imaginal cells within the chrysalis. Well, there are tens of thousands of clusters. I was about to say like us, but no two clusters are alike, right? But we're all imaginal cells. We're imagining, we're dreaming into a new world, a new modality of life on Earth. I'm dreaming in, you know, and we all have our own dreams, and that's the way it should be. But we come together to talk about our different dreams to see how we can build consensus and move forward together. So I dream of a vegan world, a world in which all humans eat plant-based foods. There is no animal exploitation, no animal agriculture, and that we live in healthy, sustainable, holistic, compassionate ways. And that we work together to correct for the overshoots, that we return land back to nature. We cool the planet with mirrors, with reflectivity, among myriad other acts of healing, restoration, and regeneration, right? So anyway, but again, to accomplish all this, to co-create a whole new world, we need to come together and we need to talk and we need to coordinate. Now, currently this is happening in myriad clusters, which are for the most part isolated from each other, right? And that's been a recurring theme throughout the chrysalis, throughout all of COVID. You know, how do we come together, right? And I make a joke, which is also very serious, but let me tell it in its joke form, and feel free to chuckle if you find it funny. But imagine the, say, the 10,000 clusters that have the most activity, the most membership, the most discussions going on, right? Let's just call them the top 10,000 clusters of imaginal cells, imagining a new world. I think 99.9% of them would agree that we all need to come together. And 99.9% of them would agree that we are all quite fragmented. But if you ask the most active participants, in our case, all of us who are in this room, if you're in this room, you're an active participant, right? If you were to survey the most active participants in those top 10,000 clusters of imaginal cells, how do we bring everyone together? Most of them would have the same answer. The same answer. So why aren't we coming together? It's because that common answer goes like this. Oh, how do we all come together? How do these 10,000 clusters of imaginal cells come together? Simple. Come here. Come to my Zoom room.
We have a conference at McCormick Hall, downtown Chicago, big conference center, right?
Well, there you go. See, this is a perfect example. Michael is saying, hey, I'm in the Midwest. Come here. Come to my conference center, right? Someone in another network of Zoom meetings would say, come here, come here. Everyone's saying, come here, come here, come here. And so in a sense, most of these clusters of imaginal cells see each other as competition, right? It's kind of like Lord of the Flies, but it's Lord of the imaginal cells, right? I'm just taking one perspective on it. It's not, this is a vast oversimplification, right? But we're storytelling here, and we're sense making. So it's okay to tell stories. It's okay to talk oversimplifications. None of this is 100% true, but it is a very common phenomenon that competition exists among clusters of imaginal cells, particularly those who are trying to make money or are making money at this. And so in fact, the network that's launched character assassination attempts against me, they were based on complete lies, nothing but lies, absolute lies, and in some cases, lies on top of lies, lies covering up lies. But they launched their attacks coincident with two major waves of innovation that we developed right here in our community. The first one was going 24/7 with the conversation, which Marco and Christopher and James and Jimena have been major leaders of going early on. Everyone here is a major leader of right now, but this is last summer, almost a year ago, we went 24/7. So this other network felt threatened by our emergence and our innovations and our bringing people together. So that's what sparked the first wave of character assassination from them against me. The second wave happened when we were developing the press conference. They felt threatened by that too. But all of this emerged out of this story of competition, when really what we should all be doing is cooperating and coming together. And so I've created a metaphor, which I'll do a screen share and show some images of, but the metaphor is of a patchwork quilt, right? Think of the patchwork quilt that won the Iowa State Fair in 1967. You can visualize it, right? It's got all these different patches. They're all very different, and they all got stitched together to form one quilt, right? So in this metaphor, each of those patches is a different cluster of imaginal cells, like this Zoom room right here, like this community right here. So we are one patch in an emergent quilt, okay? So here, let me now screen share and show this big idea in pictorial form. Okay, it's in full screen now, right? Okay, so basically what we're talking about is transformational communities. And I put down below, and groups, organizations, clubs, nonprofits, churches, etc. Not all of them call themselves communities. We call ourselves by different names, different labels, but the labels really don't matter. We are, we're clusters of imaginal cells. That's what we are. That's how I see us. And we are, each one of us is doing really interesting things, but we're separate. See, we're like the patches of a quilt before the quilt gets stitched together. You follow me? Okay. So within this, we are one of those patches. Here, if you can see my mouse, let's say we're this patch down here on the lower right, the one with kind of gray circles on it, right? Imagine that's us. And what we're doing something really interesting right now. We are creating a Chrysalis calendar, a calendar of all of these meetings that we're having, these diverse meetings, right? Here in our Zoom room, our 24/7 Zoom room, right? And so and we're having meetings on all these different topics that really matter. Here's just 4 examples of the topics that we're having: food healers, engineer solutions to global warming, solar radiation management to cool the planet. That's one of the engineer solutions, saving the Amazon, et cetera, et cetera. It's a long, long list. But anyway, the bottom line is, so here we are in the lower right with a Chrysalis calendar that basically says, hello world, come join us in these different meetings. And at first my thought was, hey, this calendar should apply to the whole Chrysalis, to all these different patches. But then I got a big insight. Given that we are currently very separate, perhaps a better approach is as follows: encourage all these clusters to form their own calendars. Now, if they want to put their calendars on some common platform like Trove, which is what we're doing, go for it, right? Or if you want to just create your own and have it up on TeamUp or some other platform, go for it. do whatever feels right to you, but create a calendar, get a calendar, right? Back in the 80s, we had the saying in the United States, get a life, get a life. Well, now I'm saying get a calendar. Get a calendar. And then as these different clusters create their own calendars to invite the world to their meetings, we can connect these calendars up and form a network of these calendars, right?
I have a question, please. Will you
yeah,
stop
Michael,
recording, please?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
So I wonder,
Okay, Michael, go ahead. Yeah.
I wonder whether for all of our imaginal selves creating our own calendars, whether it might be easier just to use a platform called Trove Catalyst.network. Check out their calendar building. I'm really excited about linking with that. Thank you.
Yeah. So back to the screen share of the presentation here. So we are creating our Chrysalis calendar on Trove. And if all these other clusters also created their Chrysalis calendars on Trove, we would all automatically be linked together, right? Because on Trove, you'll have the ability to say, hey, only show me this one calendar. Show me what's on there, or show me what's on these calendars, or show me what's on all the calendars, right? And that's
show me regional for this city or county or whatever, right? Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Or just filter it down to these topics. Only show me these topics, these regions, and you can filter down. So it's a very small set of events that passes through the filter, or you can open it all the way up and say, show me everything, right? But this is what I believe is the best strategy, I believe, for number one, allowing all these clusters of imaginal cells to operate independently, to maintain their independence in a decentralized way, but at the same time, coming together and forming what I think of as a universal calendar, right? Now, Trove is still in the early stages of its own evolution, right? Lots of these calendars of these imaginal clusters are up on other platforms like TeamUp, and probably hundreds, if not thousands of different platforms, right? But the good news is that the potential exists to basically do to all these calendars what Google did to the internet in the late 90s, which was to basically create a massive database. What Google did was created essentially a massive database, a massive index of all the content on the internet. What we need to do is create a massive index of all the calendars, of all the clusters of imaginal cells, having transformational conversations and engaging in transformational projects, right? That is the great challenge in front of us. And the good news is it is totally doable. Look, if Google was able to index the entire internet over 20 years ago with technology that was over 20 years old, this vast internet with calendars and databases and images and text and this and that and all kinds of different kinds of content, how hard can it be for us to index a whole bunch of calendars over 20 years later? It's a piece of cake. It's going to be a piece of cake. So the good news is that we're almost there, right? We're almost there because so many of these clusters of imaginal cells have created calendars or are creating calendars because they want to invite the world to their conversations. They're basically saying, hey, party at our place, right? It's basically like fraternity row on a Friday night early in the semester, and all the frats are cranking their music, saying, "Hey, come here, come here, come here, come here, everybody here," right? What we're saying is, hey, can we create a directory, a common calendar that shows all these events? That here, because I believe that this network of calendars, and if we put it all together into a single database, you can think of it as a single calendar. Why not? Google created a single index for the entire internet. Why can't we create a single index for all of the events held by all of the clusters? Think communities. When I say cluster, think communities held by all the transformational communities. Why not? It's kind of trivial to accomplish. We still need to do it, but it's imminently doable, is my point. As we build out, and I'm just going to refer to it as the universal calendar, right? This index of all the calendars of all the transformational communities, all the Chrysalis calendars, like the one we're creating. I'm going to call that the universal calendar. As we build the universal calendar, that in turn becomes like phase one of collective superintelligence, right? See, here we're doing all this great collective sense making all on this one Zoom meeting, right? And we get to interact and share ideas. I know I'm kind of doing a giant monologue, as my father would call it, diarrhea of the mouth, right? I've kind of got diarrhea of the mouth here, but in principle anyway, this is a conversation. I encourage everyone to jump in and share. Please do so whenever you feel like it. But okay, so just imagine we're all talking here, we're all sharing, and then this is happening, similar conversations on a wide diversity of topics are happening across a vast network of tens of thousands of Zoom rooms and conversations on other platforms, whether it's Clubhouse or Reddit or, whatever, myriad different platforms. Think of all of this as a vastly hyper-connected network, right? The universal calendar provides phase one of this hyperconnection across all these different meetings, right? The universal calendar provides phase one of integration of all these transformational conversations into a unified network. Do you see that? Right? This is phase one of integration. And there will be other phases of integration afterwards, but this puts us squarely on track for hyper accelerated evolution of the collective superintelligence. It's kind of that simple, right? What is a human brain but a network of neurons, and they're all firing at different times? Well, in this one Zoom meeting, we're a network of brains. And in the picture I'm painting, we're talking about a network of tens of thousands of such networks, as is happening in this Zoom room. That is the basis for collective superintelligence, where different Zoom rooms take responsibility for different topics, different kinds of analysis, different areas of design. Some of us need to be designing the floating mirrors to float on the ocean. Others need to be designing the structures to hold those mirrors together in networks. Others need to be designing the systems to handle all the wave action and all that might otherwise destroy those networks of floating mirrors. Others need to design systems to protect the wildlife in the ocean, who otherwise might swim into a poorly designed structural system. Well, let's create a well-designed structural system that is not threatening to wildlife, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? All this needs to happen across a vast network of conversations and other media of collaboration, like, for example, GitHub, Others will collaborate on Google Documents, whatever. We've got all these different tools. We just need to connect it all together, right? What we've basically got is
what we need,
yeah.
if I may advocate for a large network on which to broadcast these messages, a bigger network. Somehow we might trip upon some type of a television network, which is the common way for people to communicate. Let's face it. Look at all these televangelists. They do what they want. Let us do what we want. That, you file a 501c3, the Chrysalis nonprofit, and we have our guests on TV and shit, so such. Pardon me.
No problem, Michael. Well, actually, one of the domain names I've reserved for these purposes is chrysalis.fm, and I'm kind of imagining like a big FM band where, like an FM band in a major metropolitan area, in one section of the band, you've got the classical music station. In another, you got hard rock. In another, you got talk radio, way over at the left end, you've got all this talk radio stuff and all that. In others, it's news. And so that's a linear dimension, but that's probably the easiest way to start. So the bottom line is there's going to be lots of ways of slicing, dicing, and organizing all of these transformational conversations and conversations around co-creation, right? Again, whether on GitHub or Google Docs or AutoCAD collaborations or whatever. There's going to be there's just gazillions of platforms for co-creation already out there. We just need to bring them all together and organize them. Right. So whereas Google had the slogan, organizing the world's information, the Chrysalis network is about organizing the world's transformation. How cool is that? Again, Google's slogan, going back to the 90s, organizing the world's information. Our slogan, organizing the world's transformation by creating an in-person.
Write that down. Write that down, please. Date it and write that down for your records. That's good.
I'll do that right now. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Organizing the world's transformation. Awesome. Okay. And so, but it's kind of as simple as that. But phase one is the universal calendar, right? Just like phase one for Google was the first Google index, and it was pretty simple back in the late 90s, but it worked. And it enabled them to do phase two, phase three, phase four. And now they've got Alphabet and Google Docs and Gmail and image search and video search and all kinds of different kinds of search and collaboration. They even own YouTube now, and they've done all kinds of acquisitions. Marco's got his hand up. Go for it, Marco.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that we're organizing, and for collective intelligence to be with the Chrysalis calendar and getting the groups aware of each other for multiple reasons, and one of those reasons is to share the collective intelligence with each new person. It adds the intelligence, and collective intelligence needs to have some central central space, but we're not talking about making one and only one space for the collective intelligence. It's very much just a way that everyone can benefit from what's been collected and still and now I've lost the word, and still function very decentralized. Everything has to happen everywhere where it needs to happen, and that's just a fact of the science of we're not all sitting in the same space, but we are trying to protect the same planet. So it's very important to remember that we're not asking for everybody to be exactly bound by some centralized force, just benefit from the centralized collective intelligence. And welcome, Sanjeev and Mark. Good to see you both.
Yeah, great to see you both, Sanjeev and Mark. Feel free to say hello.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, welcome, Sanjeev. Great to see you. And Mark, we know you well from Kiko Lab meetings, and it's super exciting to see you here. Mark, feel free to say hello.
I just I've been deleting extra emails and saw this one. So,
I'm so glad you didn't delete us, but instead came to jump in. Listen, Sanjeev and Mark, we've been having a super cool meeting, but listen to this. With you guys here, now it's perfect. We needed you guys here. With you guys here, Sanjeev and Mark, now it's perfect. Now we're recording, and our rule is very simple. Cheers. This core is for you, Michael. This bud's for you. Michael, you want to show us that bud? I'm going to pause recording for a second just so you don't get us into trouble. All right, let me just read. Now, Mark's a super quick study, so I'm just going to recap for Mark really quick, but this will be good review for all of us. Let me get back on the slides here. So Mark, and feel free to jump in, Mark, anytime. This is just a free-flowing conversation. You don't even need to raise your hand, just jump in. But the picture I'm painting here is we are myriad transformational communities all across the Zoomosphere, Clubhouse, Facebook, all different platforms, Trove, etc. And yet we're mostly fragmented, right? We're each kind of our own little bubble. And so I'm painting a picture where we're kind of like this emergent quilt. Each cluster of imaginal cells in the chrysalis is like a different patch on this emergent quilt, right? So what is going to connect us all together? How do we stitch this quilt together into a unified quilt? Well, I'm proposing that what we're doing, our particular patch on the emergent quilt, is creating the Chrysalis Calendar, right? We're the conversation.cc. That's one of our domain names, one of our websites for this space. And so we're creating the Chrysalis Calendar on Trove. On a lot of different topics. Here are just some of them I just typed up today just to make a quick and dirty presentation. But we talk about a lot of things here. And so here we are. We're this one little lone patch off in the lower right, but we got a cool calendar to say, hello world, these are all the meetings that we're having on all these different topics. Come join us. And we know that we're not alone. There's a bunch of imaginal cells, clusters of imaginal cells throughout the chrysalis that likewise are creating their own calendars. So we see a huge opportunity in connecting these calendars together and even starting a trend where then other clusters of imaginal cells who are having meetings saying, hey, that's working for them. Let's do the same thing. Let's create our own chrysalis calendars. Whether on Trove or on TeamUp or whatever platform, it kind of doesn't matter, because in the end, everything that rises must converge. So imagine all of these chrysalis calendars becoming networked together into one giant, and we're kind of groping for metaphors here, but one, I think a really good model is Google. What did Google do in the late 90s? They created an index of the entire internet, right? We're talking about creating an index of all the chrysalis calendars, of all the clusters, communities of imaginal cells, like this one, like Kiko Lab, like so many examples. Right? There's just tens of thousands of clusters of imaginal cells coming together, but we're all fragmented. So one way to bring us all together, not necessarily the only way, but one obvious way, is we create chrysalis calendars of all the events, all the meetings that we're having on these transformational topics, whether it's about cooling the planet, limiting population growth, transforming the economy, intentional communities, transforming politics, sociocracy, direct democracy, yada, 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 right? Going vegan, going plant-based, you name it, right? Cleaning up our economy, zero emissions, you know, regenerative agriculture, returning land to nature, saving the Amazon, you name the topic, human rights, you name the topic, right?
To encourage people to have a voice and to have them be listened to, and to basically encourage the diminishing of silence between us.
That's it. That's it. Because how do we connect? We connect through conversation, through sharing stories, right? And as we connect and converse and share stories, that's how we do collective sense making, right? And so to the extent that we can connect together these different clusters of imaginal cells who are having just a near infinite diversity of conversations on a near infinite diversity of topics, think of the network of these conversations as doing collective sense making, right? Just like on my bot. Yeah, go ahead, Mark. Yeah.
I have a question. You used the term imaginal cells, and I looked it up in my own Memex, and I see from a meetup on collective wisdom at the Sandbox Suites here in San Francisco from Thursday, September 18th, 2009 was the last time I heard that term. And it's connected with caterpillar and butterfly, with transformation, with metamorphosis. I'm wondering if you could talk a little more about the concept of imaginal cells, because I know that I have only a little memory of what that means. And it's an interesting term. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone want to take this? I'm happy to, but I've been kind of, not intentionally, but I've ended up with the talking feather quite a bit. I just want to give an opportunity to anyone else who wants to take a crack at it.
Marco? Welcome, Marco.
We've got Mark and Marco. Yeah.
I guess I'm being volunteered. Yeah, the way I see the imaginal cells, they are like in the butterfly, they're very much similar to like our stem cells that can, you know, grow to be, you know, they have like an intelligence of knowing what they need to become in order to form the butterfly. And I was actually today thinking very much about that, thinking it's like literally we have this miracle of the chrysalis where a caterpillar or some other, you know, larval form just says, okay, it's time to create a shell around myself and become something new. And if it's possible for a butterfly to do it, a caterpillar to turn into a butterfly, and since, you know, we're all, you know, became into reality on this planet, who's to say that we can't do that ourselves? Who's to say that humans will not be able to, maybe we won't need to go into a chrysalis literally, but maybe if we, you know, connect properly with our consciousness, which we don't fully understand yet, maybe we can literally transform ourselves physically. So it's very, you know, at one point you would have been told, well, that's magic, or, you know, some nonsense like that, but it happens every day on this planet. Caterpillars into butterflies through a period.
There was a 107-year-old woman in the news the other day. She was like speaking to the media. I forgot what it was about, but it was amazing. She was really spry. She was 107. Wow, years young.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. So yeah, I think there's a lot of potential there for us all to think about. Is that there are literally, you know, in the chrysalis form, these imaginal cells. As human beings, we know we have stem cells that are able to, grow into different organs that we need. So a lot of possibility there, and I think that's what we're, trying to harness, at least as far as collective intelligence now. Creating a better intelligence than any of us has on our own, which may lead to this next step of actual physical transformation for us. In the meantime, we have the ability, the knowledge, the talent to correct the things that are going wrong in the environment that has put us in the middle of the sixth mass extinction on the planet. And hopefully we'll be able to correct that in time.
Well, this afternoon,
Thank you.
when I was at the front of the classroom for a couple hours, Julian and I were talking, and he's got a recipe for a wonderful vegan sausage, and he's got the machinery to make vegan sausages. So we went off on that tangent. But you can create anything here. I just earlier I talked to Sister Ivy about creating T-shirts for her organization to build teamwork, and a laminated pass for all of her staff. That type of thing. Ideas are plentiful. Thank you.
Yeah, good stuff. Anyway, Mark, please keep jumping in. I'll throw in my couple cents here. So the story from biology, as I understand it, is when the caterpillar just reaches the end of its phase, it's gobbled up all it can possibly gobble up, and it can't grow anymore. It curls up into a ball, creates kind of a shell around itself, attaches itself to a branch, and just kind of hangs there like a little cocoon and starts to dissolve. And in the dissolution, these imaginal cells, these stem cells, wake up and activate, kind of like one of those, I don't know, James Bond movies where somebody just, hears the word rosebud, and then they kind of activate. They're like a sleeper cell that gets activated. And then the imaginal cells all start talking with each other. Now, what's interesting is the defenses of the caterpillar that doesn't quite know that it's dead yet, and that it's dissolving, and that its time is over. The defense systems of the caterpillar will see the imaginal cells as some foreign invader and actually, attack it, right? But in the end, the imaginal cells cluster together, just like we're clustered together here, and essentially invoke a benevolent revolution that it's, of course, in their case, pre-programmed for genetically. They come together, they network together, and they start to build out the blueprint for a butterfly. And then they build around that until the butterfly is fully formed. And then they even consume the outer shell of the chrysalis, and then, ultimately take flight, right? So that's how I see us imaginal cells. We're this tiny little cluster. Look, there's just 10 of us here in this room right now. And all across the zoomosphere, there are clusters from 2 people to 200 people to 2,000 people, right? Operating, talking about different things. And my analogy there is that throughout the chrysalis, some clusters of imaginal cells are working on like the brain of the emergent butterfly, others the eyes, others the landing gear, others the wings, others, sensory systems, others digestive systems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And so, but initially, those clusters are isolated from each other, separate from each other, because on a microscopic cellular level, it's the chrysalis is just this vast continent-sized space, right? And so we're these clusters in the real world in 2021. These clusters of imaginal cells throughout the zoomosphere are very isolated from each other. right? The deep connections that we have between the conversation.cc here and say Kiko Lab, that's the exception, not the rule. And there's actually quite a bit of competition and even animosity between different groups of people who self-characterize, self-identify as imaginal selves. That's how screwed up we are, because we're still, even though we're imaginal selves, I'm taking I'm looking at kind of the shadow side for a moment, and there's a lot of perspectives on this. It's mostly positive, but I do identify some shadow elements. But one of those is that as enlightened as we are, we're still stuck in what Daniel Schmachtenberger refers to as the all-day monopoly game of infinite hoarding on a finite planet. And part of the hoarding is not just in the realm of the material and the financial, but also in terms of the credit. You know, a lot of us are trying to take credit for, oh, this was my idea, and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, with that, I'm going to pass the talking feather. It looks like you wanted to talk, Mark. Please go ahead.
I've been thinking about these things, and I just was responding to a friend on Facebook who was like complaining about the Hollywood dreck of the Friends reunion television event. And I kind of got the notion, distraction over Dharma. We need to do the Dharma. We need to do the work, the good work, the right things to do. And you know, entertainment and distraction is a commercial force which has energy behind it because people get paid. And you know, people advertise, and I continue to comment that I basically was trying to remember my Marcus Aurelius. And Marcus Aurelius said, can the world exist without butt heads? Obviously not. When you encounter inevitably the next butt head, say to yourself, ah, thank goodness, this is a butt head upon whom the existence of the world depends. Now, Marcus Aurelius either was terrible at logic or had a very subtle and fine sense of humor. And certainly the notion of surplus, what was Clay Sharkey's notion of surplus something? It was surplus time, surplus. I mean, basically, if you took all of the hours that people have spent watching television and stick them instead to Zoom, you have all of this surplus mind, surplus energy, surplus wisdom, surplus connection that would otherwise be spent, you know, watching, you know, the next commercial. Hopefully we can, gosh, I just don't remember what his book Surplus Blank was. Hold on a second. Clay Shirky.
How do you spell Shirky?
S-H-I-R-K-Y.
Gotcha.
His book was called Cognitive Surplus.
Wow.
And
Brilliant.
so I love that notion that we can access the surplus of attention, of empathy, of other things other than cognition, by shifting the way that we spend our time as individuals, and hopefully we'll connect more and more. There we go, HCE. I love that book.
Here Comes Everybody.
I have read that book.
Clay Shirky. The power of organizing without organizations. Which is what we're talking about here with this idea of this decentralized network of Chrysalis calendars. Different clusters of imaginal cells broadcasting effectively their own events, but in a decentralized way. Back to you.
How do you imagine? So you're envisioning something, again, called the Chrysalis network. And it's a connective kind of set of practices, of technologies, of both human and machine supported kinds of things. How do you see it emerging? What kinds of, what kinds of optimal or how, pardon me, Lauren and Charles introduced this notion, I believe it was called backcasting. And I've heard of what it's based on before, but if I'm correct, they use the term backcasting for saying, imagine the vision that you want to happen and work backwards from there until here we are now, and how do we get from here to there? So I'm trying to ask that kind of question, if that makes sense.
Total sense, total sense. So if we backcast, we start from a vision where every cluster of imaginal cells that's working on one facet or another or multiple of global transformation, it's become just totally popular, beyond popular, necessary even, for all of these clusters of imaginal cells to have a Chrysalis calendar, to say, hello, rest of the chrysalis, here we are. And that there's some standard that we've all adopted, some kind of like a Google index of Chrysalis calendars that they all publish to, or at least make themselves indexable by, right? Cool thing, I keep going back to Google as an example, because see, Google, they didn't say, hey, Mark, do you want us to index your website? We're happy to do it. You just need to download all this HTML code, stick it here, some JavaScript there, some whatever here, some whatever there. And then, no, they just came to your house in the middle of the night, and without breaking your grandmother's mahogany furniture, they indexed you. And then they slipped out like Santa Claus and left you with the gift of indexing for free. Right. So we need to be a Google-like Santa Claus, sneak in the middle of the night. And so basically, I'm basically predicting. Part of my backcasting is predicting the emergence of a Google. It's actually a huge opportunity. So if I were a San Francisco entrepreneur named Mark Carranza, for example, I'd be like staying up all night coding up this Google. Okay, maybe it's not you, but maybe it's another Mark Carranza in San Francisco. But anyway, I'm not trying to recruit you to do it, by the way. I'm just trying to
Marco has his hand raised.
Yeah, Marco, go ahead.
Yeah, Mark, I was just, thinking about what you were saying with this distraction from the celebrity nonsense. I remember when important things were trying to be done in 2009 with COP15, it was totally overshadowed by Michael Jackson's death and all the controversy around that. That got 20 times or more the playtime than anything important in the news did for months, at least a month. So yeah, that element of keeping public ignorant is used very well. And I passed the talking feather.
We learned about the toxicity of addictions, certain addictions, and some are a little better than others, but unfortunately, he could not sleep very well, so he took drastic measures. It was too bad.
Well, let us not fall into the same trap that we're now at present identifying, which is to get ourselves distracted from the very urgent task of backcasting and slip into a multi-hour conversation about Michael Jackson. Okay, so back to backcasting. We envision that basically a Google emerges, and it could be Trove, right? You know, Vincent Arena could be our equivalent of Larry Page, Sergey Brin. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me stop you and basically ask that rather than Google as metaphor or as example, that we may think of something closer, perhaps to biology. What was I looking at? It was an absolutely marvelous book that did not look like it was a marvelous book. I was reading through a slide deck that a friend sent me, but it started out as it was some book about our organizational development. It looked like a very square book, but it turned out to be a very wild book of somebody who was visionary. And he started out, his chapters were organization as machine, organization as brain, organization as organism, organization as ecosystem. And so what you're describing is something that's more interesting than Google. And to use Google as an example might be something that's familiar to us, but what you seem to be describing is the kind of part of an ecosystem that, say, a metabolism is, or the wind, or a river, or some kind of piece of life that Google is a pale shade of, even though it has instant recognizability and, you know, a level of success that measures in the billions of dollars. It's not, maybe, you know, I'm encouraging you, and at the same time asking for a creative response to not a criticism, but an opportunity to maybe transcend that particular metaphor.
Very good.
To create together, to
Yeah.
play and push.
Yeah, I agree. That is very good because you're kind of sharing a moment in someone's life. You're sharing moments, and Google just takes pictures of addresses, you know, and storefronts, and they tell you where. Oh, where is that? I better check Google where that place is, you know. And I want to get a link to their website. Great, but our thing is about creating more, you know, moments of genius together, super intelligence, you know. But
Yeah. No. This is all. Yeah. Go ahead, Mark.
Oh, I was just gonna say, how does the Chrysalis calendar enhance someone's everyday life, what I've been calling low art as opposed to high art, and, you know, maybe we start with the simple, you know, calendar idea, but basically I'm not sure, for example, if Marco sends me his calendar of every opportunity that I'm able to connect with Marco, or Jamin, you send me, you know, the calendar of every open online forum that you will be in, so that I might be tacitly invited if I want to connect with you. I know where you are in our internet world at any time. So not, you know, so I might not be as interested in which communities, but which people to follow in, you know, in knowing that you'll be, say, on a deepening trust within organizations, and it's open, so I can join you and I can follow you, and that would be kind of on the calendar. You know, I'm kind of riffing at different kinds of things, but basically attempting to understand the essence of the, in VC language, value proposition of the Chrysalis calendar. To me, it would be you, Jamin, and you, Marco, and you, Michael, and you, Uncle, I'm sorry,
Uncle Frank.
Uncle Frank. Hey, Uncle Frank. That I am having, the repeated connection with, not so much an organization, but that's simply an example of moving from the metaphor of Google to the metaphor of what's actually coming from your heart, Jamin. Why you were attempting to make this happen and are attempting to make this happen.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So there's so many facets to this, but in part in response to your question of a few minutes ago, what is the kind of dimensional enhancement upon this very thin shadow that the Google metaphor represents? I'd like to offer to screen share something that Lauren put together a couple of months ago, which represented a lot of work for her that boiled down to less than 5 minutes of video, which I think provides a really nice answer. And in fact, she characterizes it as the best example she's seen of why Kiko Lab exists, which has a very parallel mission. So with your permission, I'd like to screen share it. Okay, so this will take less than 5 minutes. Please enjoy this video. Collective superintelligence is a proper mashup of two things. AI, for lack of a better word, including all the bots and systems and all that good stuff, which is not strictly AI. I'm just calling it SI. What it really is ICT, information and communication technologies. But it's a mashup of AI/ICT, the machine side, with collective human intelligence, which is what we're pioneering right here. Connect those two. Bzzz. And when you see the sparks flying, that's collective superintelligence. Okay.
It's like rebranding their minds, renewing our minds is going to be the first stage to becoming collective, becoming a collective intelligent people. When we renew our minds and become a collective intelligent people, then we rebrand ourselves to what? Using all these ideas after we've renewed our mind to become more connected and become super intelligent.
Collective superintelligence, my picture of it is a network of conversations, including this one and what we're doing over at the conversation and so many other nodes, but all networked together with the amazing software that we're all waiting for and systems, including like a universal calendar of all the events so we can see what's going on, and bots that help recommend us and point us to this and that, even bots that can track what we're saying. And, oh, you're interested in this? You should be at this meeting over here. What? Because none of us can see the whole network, but so we need help. We need guides.
One of the things that I've been wondering about is how we actually facilitate these communities of experts to connect with each other, which I think is part of what we were talking about. And that's a sort of a strategy of invitation inclusion or something, because they're probably loosely connected because they're all doing the same important things and they want to keep up with what's happening, but they're not in any way collectively gathering that information and putting it in a central location for others to learn about it quickly and easily.
What if we created kind of like a core recurring calendar, a weekly calendar? So Mondays, you guys take it and we all come here who can make it here. On whatever other, our core meetings are Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, and we could just chunk out maybe just one of those windows to say, okay, now the party's moving over there. And this kind of critical mass, including all of us and other folks who basically get it, and get it in this kind of, for lack of a better word, an egoless way, right? That we agree to, share it around, and we create essentially, for lack of a better word, a consortium, a federation of these different communities that, yes, each kind of has their own particular focus and whatnot, but that we agree to have Monday through Friday at least, you know, days and times when we all agree to essentially move the party here, move the party there, so we keep it flowing around, and yet at the same time keep it going, because we're in an exponential race against some really nasty exponentials, including exponential planetary overheating, exponential concentration of wealth. Here in the United States, we're currently falling into fascism is leading to Nazism in this country, and it's that in turn is going exponentially as people are, you know, getting desperate. It's early 1930s Germany all over again, right here in the United States. So we are the benevolent exponential. We are that ice 9 crystal that has the best potential that I know of to take off exponentially and address all of this in an extremely benevolent and extremely powerful way. I mean, collective superintelligence, decentralized change making. Anyway, so my inspiration is, let's do this in an organized way so that there's like a weekly calendar and we just keep this fire stoking.
Yeah, how to know what's going on over there across the network or on the other network, and line it all up and have it discoverable and accessible and then interoperable. Yeah,
We are on the right path with the right people to be able to share this kind of ideas and look beyond just the current systems that we have been placed in.
All right, thank you all for indulging me. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I was gonna say thank you. May I share my screen?
Absolutely. Let me make you co-host so you can do that. 1 second. Okay, Mark is now co-host. You can do it.
All right,
And we are recording, just to remind everyone.
just a second. What I am hoping to do is do a quick demo of share screen. There we go, and we share. And so I've been taking notes of this conversation and going backwards to be able to share these kind of ideas. What's on the network? Decentralized, collective, superintelligence, benevolent, exponential, as people are getting desperate and exponential ways to move the party in an egoist way. This kind of critical mass or core meeting is weakening panel strategy of inclusion. None of us can see the whole network. Universal calendar, networks of conversations. After we renewed our minds, renewing our minds, renewing your mind. And here are these stored notions. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, which was from Romans 12:2. And so this is a personal memex, and I can jump to
Is that AI? That's like AI. Wow, that's
no,
amazing.
it's not
Really?
AI at all. It's the opposite.
I don't know.
IA.
Okay. IA. Okay, good. Wow.
It's just something I created in 1984 and I've been using daily. And so I can go to a particular date, and I was thinking, or at least I stored 123 things back in 1993. And because this was created before the web, this is a text file. If you can see that out.txt. So I can't jump to these things, but each of these lines is itself a list. So things to do fields is a list with 16 nodes. 12:48 p.m. is a list with 2,000 nodes. Barry Simons, 9, ProArts, etc. But what I can do is, give me a second here, Control W. Type in something I've typed in before, Jamin Shively. And so I have this searchable alphabetical list of all my thoughts that I was able to type in, about 2.3 million. And I can basically connect Jamin Shively to last name. Oops, sorry about that. last name Shively, first name Jamin, and I can use this alphabetical search to go to other first names or to other last names or to other things connected with Chrysalis. And I've just connected Chrysalis with Jamin by just typing Chrysalis calendar and typing enter when I'm on Jamin Shively. So I can associate Jamin Shively with Kiko Lab, boom. And this is my list of Jamin Shively so far. 11 notions, only 11. And hopefully there'll be hundreds more, but each of these is a hyperlist. So if I go to radish.org, there'll be 5 associations. The Ecolab call of March 29th, oops, March 29th, are 320 notions. And again, I can just jump to all of these easily. Holochain, Stanley Pokras, certainly Marco Elsterman I saw here. I don't know Marco Elsterman that well, but yeah, I've linked him with 3 Ecolab calls. I should link him with this collective something.cc. I haven't created a title for this experience, so I haven't gathered all of the notions. But what is today again? The 21st?
Yeah.
21. 21? Is that it? Yeah. Okay. So on my list of today, all of the things that I've typed in while we were here. Michael Prince, yes. Wow. So Control C. These are all the notions that I have thought while we're here, and I'll paste them in the chat if I can figure out how to do that. I'm going to stop screen sharing. Stop. Paste them in the chat. Control V. Oh, that's not going to work because it doesn't go from DOS to Windows. Well, all right, what I'm going to do now is thank you for watching and listening. I am unfortunately tired and found out about this late, but now I'm on your list, Jamin. And when I open my email, I'll see that again. And what I'll do is paste that list of what I wrote down during this conversation before I go to sleep. But thank you, Marco. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Uncle Frank. Haven't heard from Julian or Alan, but thank you so much, Jamin. I need to leave, but not sharing the attention that I gave and giving back to you what I've written down from my experience here in this call. Appreciate the attention, and we'll continue working together.
Awesome. I'm so excited, Mark. So excited. Love it all. Love it all. Super cool. Awesome. Have a great night and a great weekend, and we'll be seeing each other very soon.
Thank you, Mark. Peaceful sleep.
Thank you, Marco. It's that healing sleep.
Thank you, Mark. Your attention to detail and your note taking is astounding. Very excellent. Very inspiring. Thank you.
Been doing this since 1984, and basically, I think what I'm working on is theory and practice, starting with the minimum possible sense-making structure, but basically collecting, which is basically idea to idea. So that idea 1 is linked to idea 2. Idea 2 leads to idea 1. But billions of those, you have a massive interconnected, integrated meaning graph of multiple dimensions, tons of dimensions.
Yeah, my brother is a senior researcher, and he pulled up all of Mark Twain's works on his cell phone, and he searched for how many times Twain mentioned his mother in his works, for example. So, I mean, wow, I'm just astounded. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to have a what is it? I use the example of a Blake machine because I love the poetry of somebody named Blake from England from the 1600s. But a Twain machine would be fantastic to have as well. Let's see here. I'm trying to file, edit, copy, and go over here and edit, paste. There we go. Let's see if that works. So those are my notes from our talk, which only basically, gosh, it didn't show the whole 100 or so things I typed in. It's only kind of showing a few of them, but sorry about that. We'll develop better tools as we go along. And Michael, I'll just hit the save chat so I get your email address. And again, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mark. Super cool having you. Looking forward to more.
Ooh, I'm glowing in the dark.
Yeah.
Light out for effect, but I didn't realize that the computer would keep me lit. So anyway, good night, everybody. Have a safe and healthy continuing conversation. Good to see you again, Marco.
Hey,
Bye-bye.
take care.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks.
Take care. Have a great night, great weekend. We'll see you soon.
See you.
Thanks, Mark. Wow. So we're continuing to record. Welcome back, Julian.
Jamin, I
This-
think this is
yeah.
gonna have to take this opportunity to bow out also. It's
All
getting
right.
late
All
for me.
right. Okay,
But,
Uncle Frank.
I've given me a lot to think about. So,
Wonderful. Good.
Good.
So thank you. Thank you so
All
much
right.
for visiting and for taking this all in. Good
All
stuff.
right.
We'll
All
have
right.
lots to follow up on. All right, Uncle
Okay, we
Frank.
will.
Thank you, Julian. Thank
Good
you.
night to everyone.
Thank you
Have
for
a
your
great night.
limitless energy today.
Always a pleasure to join in. Hop along with some energy. You know what I'm saying, bro?
That's what I'm talking about.
Sí, señor. Aquí estamos para siempre, para usted, para el planeta, para los animales, para los niños, mujeres, todos demás. No se preocupe.
Efectivamente, aquí estamos por toda la vida en nuestra madre tierra. Animales, plantas, insectos, bacterios, y toda forma de vida. Y aquí estamos para integrar, salvar, transformar y regenerar toda la vida en la tierra. Hermoso.
Lindo, lindo, lindo.
Beautiful. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Well, I'm just going
don't
to
they
pause.
say there's no, they warn against zooming while zooming, right? I'm not sure.
What's that mean?
All right, I'm going to pause recording.